Hi, everybody. My name is John Lynn. I'm the co-founder of QUAY Acceleration. QUAY Acceleration builds startup accelerators in partnership with corporations, governments, universities, investor groups, and of course, startups. We build our accelerators based on our amazing mentor network, a network of existing technology experts, entrepreneurs, community leaders, and investors that come in and meet our entrepreneurs during the programs. The purpose of this podcast is to bring forward some of those stories and individuals so that we can hear about their experiences and talk about their learnings, so that you can walk away from these conversations knowing a little bit better what to expect at an accelerator and what to expect as an entrepreneur. So today, we are here with JP, who is helping lead the effort at Impact Hub and also one of our hosts. And we're going to hear from him a little bit about his career journey, his work at Impact Hub, and some of the things that you can keep in mind as you think about your career in social impact or as an entrepreneur. So JP, thank you for being a part tonight. Thank you for taking the time. We know it's the end of a long work day today, but it's a beautiful space that we love to be a part of as community members, that we love to have our programming at, both our events and meetings, and that we're appreciative of. So thanks for the work you do here, and thanks for being here tonight.
Thanks so much for giving me the time and the space to tell a little bit about the work that we do here and my story as well. Really appreciate it, and I've always been a great fan of the work that you all do, and happy to be also a partner in this work.
Thank you, JP. So before we get into sort of your backstory and some of the moves that you've made to be a part of social impact and do your work here at Impact Hub, what is Impact Hub? What are you working on right now?
Sure. So to begin, we're a 501c3 nonprofit. Our goal is to support the social innovation ecosystem broadly to advance, essentially, protecting people and planet, which we define through the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals that were signed by 192 nation states, coordinated by the UN, with feedback from people across the world to make the world a better place, essentially. And so what Impact Hub does is we support the social innovation community through a collaborative space, such as this one. And then we run many different kinds of activities within the space, both as an organization internally, but then for externals as well. That may be skill development workshops, social topic discussions, co-creation sessions. Sometimes they're regionally focused. Sometimes they are focused on specific issues. So for example, yesterday, all day long, we were working with movers and shakers in the sustainable food industry. So it really varies.
Our co-founder Frances was there, right?
Yes, she was, and we were very happy to have her back at the hub, where we think that she belongs in part of our community. And then we run programs as well, boot camps and incubator programs with partners to help great ideas take off.
And what's your role at Impact Hub?
My role is co-founder and CEO.
So what is the day-to-day for you here?
Yeah, so our work, like many organizations, requires a lot of collaboration, partnership, and my work, even though I have the role of CEO, varies widely from working with corporate partners to governments to entrepreneurs to nonprofits to aspiring entrepreneurs, and so that work ranges day to day, but gives a very in-depth perspective on the various levels of activities that are happening in the city, and because we're in New York, across the world, in the sector.
Yeah, great. So I want to hear more about what you're trying to accomplish here at Impact Hub and where you're going to take things, impact the social impact ecosystem here in New York and beyond. But first, JP, is this where you started? Were you always interested in social impact? Were you always an entrepreneur? How did the story begin for you?
Yeah, thanks. My journey actually began as a teenager, I guess, which you may not believe, but was actually quite a while ago. But I was a teenager during 9/11, and living just outside the city in the suburbs of New Jersey. And,
where in New Jersey?
Morristown.
From Ridgewood.
You're from Ridgewood? No way. It's a small world. I mean, how coincidental could it be? It's not very far away from here, 20, maybe 30 miles by the crow. But essentially, as a teenager, during 9/11 or after 9/11, I really started thinking that I really wanted to contribute to making the world a better place and encouraging ways to develop partnerships and improve lives in different parts of the world where it seemed like we had work to do to develop better relations. Amidst the tragedies that occurred, here in the city, which impacted all of us very greatly. And so I decided I was going to venture abroad with the hope of having an international career that touched on humanitarian work and diplomacy. And so spent many years studying at undergraduate level, graduate level, working in development projects in sub-Saharan Africa and different parts of Southeast Asia, studying, researching, lived in the Middle East as well, trying to get a holistic picture and understanding of where I fit in and what I can do to contribute to many of the urgent challenges that we have. Obviously, like many people, you start out thinking one thing as a teenager, but then ultimately, over time, seeing things that I liked. I'm a very project-based person. I really enjoy working on projects as opposed to pushing papers. Not for everybody. And I was a graduate student in Singapore, actually at the National University of Singapore, studying public policy. And it was during the recovery of the financial crisis, and it seemed to me, while I was in class in Singapore, that maybe entrepreneurship could be a better vehicle to support lasting change. And so I started to get very excited about this idea and made a pivot to entrepreneurship. And so went to study entrepreneurship at Stanford in the Graduate School of Business in a program that was for graduate students. And ended up moving to West Africa to work on an innovation hub to support entrepreneurs who had their own ideas of how they wanted to improve the lives of people in their communities and in the region. And that's when I found Impact Hub.
Wow, amazing. So I want to come back to a few moments in the path that you just laid out there. And then the first one is this moment of almost revelation, where you're in Singapore and you've been experiencing different communities and regions of the world. And now, after searching for this kind of, well, what do I want to contribute? Understand this intersection of entrepreneurship and social impact is the way to make the world a better place. Can you take us closer to that moment? Because I think so many people that are interested in entrepreneurship, and again, only 1% of anyone in the country will start a company during the course of their lives, need to understand where these inspirations and ideas come from. So how did it hit you?
Yeah, so in part, I feel like I had many unique experiences abroad already by that point. I had reflected on some of these activities. I did a short internship with the World Food Program in Niger. I had taught English in Mali, worked on documentary projects to try and figure out what was affecting low life expectancy outcomes in different parts of the continent. I had been throughout the Middle East trying to understand some of the conflicts there and so forth. And I think at the end of the day, you have to look at yourself and say, I've been really gifted to have access and opportunities to understand certain topics. I have certain skills that I'm good at, things that I'm motivated to do. You never want to get stuck doing something that will take you far more energy to complete than someone else in some way. And I think it's a confluence of allowing yourself the time to reflect and being inspired by the moment, right? So if there hadn't been the financial crisis, I wouldn't have been thinking about how humanitarian work was not a sustainable way to make change. Right? A lot of funding for humanitarian efforts across the world were being pulled back. It was affecting extreme poverty, hunger in different parts of the world. So when you think about how you're going to apply your education to those to these challenges that you're really passionate about, it's a revolving door. For now, it's for me entrepreneurship and supporting these innovative communities. What will it be in 10 years? Who's to say?
That's something I really understand on some level, because one of the early projects that we worked on was with China, and we were bringing tech companies from the international market into the Chinese market, trying to help them find investors in key cities there. And we were in Shanghai once, and I asked one of our co-hosts, when was the last time you've been to Shanghai? And he said, I've never been to Shanghai before. And so when you say, you've got to remain aware of the advantage that you have from your experiences, from your education, and look for ways to leverage those, I think I understand. And then the second moment I want to revisit is now you're in West Africa again, after going through Stanford, and you understand the structure of Impact Hub and how that can really bring to life this mission that you've been trying to figure out already for a few years. How did you discover that structure? Think about that.
Yeah, so essentially our hub in West Africa grew out of an educational program, a certificate in entrepreneurship program from a nonprofit that a friend had started. And we had all these people who were graduating from the certificate program, wanting to start up companies, and at that time, in that moment in Ghana, which is why timing is so important, it was very hard for people to find reliable access to the internet, to find a place where they could take meetings, to work with others, to collaborate, to get their ideas off the ground, get business support and get help. And so in that moment of seeing the opportunity with a group of my co-founders to start a hub, I knew this was the best way for me to contribute, because I just love the idea, and especially for anyone who can identify as having had the chance to be a foreigner, or being someone who is in an environment where you're not where you're learning, you're not fully integrated. I just love this idea of helping others with their ideas, and so the structure for that was something that developed over time in terms of what that looks like. It looks like at first like a space with an incubator program, and over time it looks like the opportunity to grow verticals within the institution that would spin out. So we developed a lot just from the ecosystem. The ecosystem was interested and passionate about health innovation. And so over time we built health innovation programming, and we spun out a health innovation center that is in the neighborhood now of where our first hub was, as its own institution, and is, to our knowledge, the first health innovation center of its kind in the region. And so, I think you can't really prescribe necessarily what the outcome of the projects that you work on will be. And it's always an evolution, and there's no endpoint. So, the work there has grown over time, and some of the infrastructure, the physical infrastructure, has found its own business model of being able to support social entrepreneurs in its own way. And so, you can never have all the answers. You should never feel as if you have all the answers. You should listen to what the ecosystem wants, what you can bring, and just ride the wave.
Yeah, think of him what you will, but it reminds me of a Mark Zuckerberg quote that nobody has the answers at the beginning. Right, you don't know where you're going until you start building, and it's such a key way to move forward as an entrepreneur. The other thing that strikes me there is your statement about timing. And one thing that we say in so many of our programs is the importance of a network as an entrepreneur is timing. When you have a problem, your solution is most likely to find you in the form of a person. And it's having those relationships at the right time that often solve your problem as an entrepreneur. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. I mean, we see entrepreneurs.
You don't have to.
Yeah, no, I think in this ecosystem we've seen many people who have been searching for their startup idea, and they'll meet someone and they'll have a conversation that will change their direction. I think it's also, though, important to note that a lot of startups don't succeed at first, and a lot of ideas change as the environment changes, but people who have a topic that they're very passionate about influencing, whether it's tackling hunger, tackling health, they have an industry that they're particularly interested in. All the experiences that they have help them become an expert in that field, whether their initial startup works out the way that they think it will, whether or not they have to do a pivot where they go back to the private sector and, the more formalized private sector, and then come back later as a startup. And I think as long as you're intentional, and today it's not necessarily intuitive or the most ethical thing to push people to become entrepreneurs, because it is such a grueling process, and because the economic benefits can be
Rare.
Yes, rare to, but we see some of the most formidable people become entrepreneurs, and people who enter the sphere of being entrepreneurs who are not as formidable, they become formidable in the process.
100%. So before we get to the end here, and we hear about what you sort of recommend people consider as they begin an entrepreneurial journey, what's one high moment that you've had, and what's one low moment?
I think the highest moments, or one of the highest moments that was pivotal for us, is that, or for me rather, was in our work in West Africa and Ghana. Initially, we were ahead of the curve of people understanding the co-working movement and the social innovation, ecosystem development, mostly across the world, but also in West Africa. And it was a challenging time in general. And we had a hackathon. We partnered with Aurora Kiste, who is I would say a mover and a shaker, and an extremely dedicated change maker. And we hosted a hackathon that grew to, at that point, one of the largest hackathons ever on the continent. And it was a moment when the ecosystem all came together there. And I think for me, that was the highest moment, because all these people we were working with so closely, we cared so much about, seeing them elevated through some of the partnerships that the hackathon provided. The Facebook team, I mentioned Mark Zuckerberg, a team from Facebook came out. We had people coming from across the world to engage in this activity. The entrepreneurs felt really excited and heard, and it was a duration 3-day event and all this, and I felt like that was a turning point for our work there in the community, and that for me was a high. Yeah.
Can you share a low?
So like many entrepreneurs, there are highs and the lows are usually associated with funding and the economics of starting up. And when we started, or having gone out, I was in my 20s, without savings really of any kind. We're putting all of our collected efforts and belongings into that institution, and there were moments when I thought, wow, maybe I need to go home. This is a heavy situation. Who knows if it's going to work out? How much longer can we do this? And I remember my co-founders and I, between us, we only had enough money left to get some dried pasta, and hope over 3 or 4 days that one of the transfers from one of our partners is going to come in and help us out. And that's in the end, I'm here, and it happened, and it did, and we stuck through it, and there were other hard times, but I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs, especially in New York, are confronted with the brutal reality of the economics of starting up a for-profit or a non-profit.
I totally agree. So, it's the end of our time. Can you tell us, JP, what's next for Impact Hub, and what's one thing entrepreneurs in the audience should think about?
Yeah, so our goal here, we have a space in Midtown that we opened up just over a year ago, and so far it's been incredibly active. We've had over 160 events and activities here. The hustle is on, but we're here to do, and so this is why we've been so engaging. But our goal is to start here and grow. We want to build a flagship innovation center here in New York for local innovators, but also from our global network. I didn't mention earlier, but we're part of a global network of hubs in 120 cities and 68 countries. And we understand how important the resources in New York are for communities across the world of innovators and entrepreneurs to learn, to grow, to access capital, to network into the ecosystem here. And we know our local entrepreneurs here are passionate, excited, and are even part of communities that connect across the world. And so really, look out for us in the next year or two of doing a major raise to open up a flagship center. And what I would say to anyone who's aspiring to be a social impact change maker of any kind, I would say that there are different paths for different people. Only you know what you're most passionate about, what you're most excited about. You don't always have to start a company. You don't always have to start a nonprofit at first. You can engage in the ecosystem. You can try to pilot projects. You can prototype. But if you're not listening to the communities you're trying to serve, if you're not building with the spirit of curiosity and excitement, then it might not be for you. But if I'm not having an emotional moment, I'm just choking.
Take your time.
But if it is for you, then do everything you can to allow the people who are in your community, in your networks, to know what you're working on. Because a lot of people that who don't know what you're up to will want to support you. And if they don't know, they can't help you.
And if you don't say it, they might assume that you're not doing the work. So JP, I agree. I think participation is first. Whether you're supporting another person's initiative or taking initiative of your own, just getting in there is the start. So JP, thank you for your work at Impact Hub. Thank you for being a great partner to Key Acceleration. And thank you for your time and insights tonight.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.